the music industry is very data driven. We can see a lot of data, but I feel music ultimately is a connect on emotions.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 10th episode of Pepper Spotlight podcast. This show introduces you to some of the brightest minds in the content ecosystem. My name is Pawan Rochwani, and I'm the host of this show. If you feel and notice that my energy is a little higher in this episode compared to all the past episodes, it's because of the topic that we're going to discuss: hip hop and rap. I think I've been waiting to speak to my guest for a long, long time, but glad that this episode is releasing with Chaitanya Kataria, who's the co-founder and head of business at Gully Gang Entertainment. In this conversation, we're going to speak to him about what really goes in the background, or let's say in the back end of the music production or music release business. It's really about not just seeing when Divine releases his song on Spotify or YouTube, but how do they plan it, what strategy goes behind it, how do they hire new artists and bring in new artists under their label is something that we're going to discuss entirely. And if you stick around into this entire conversation, you will know at the end of the conversation that how the song Mirchi was created. Without taking much time, let's deep dive into this conversation with Chaitanya Kataria. This conversation was pre-recorded over a Zoom call, and you will listen to this from here onwards. Thank you so much, Chaitanya, for giving us your time and being part of this conversation today and being a guest on Pepper Spotlight podcast. I think I am one of the person who became a big fan of Divine and the whole Gully Gang team altogether when I watched them perform the first time in Zomaland, Pune. And listening to rap and listening to Divine and the whole Gully Gang team is a different thing, but watching them perform live is a whole new way of experiencing that rap music. And I'm very, very excited to have this conversation with you today. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to be here, man. Great to be here.
Chaitanya, we usually start with, because I mean, I've known Billy Gang and, heard you on multiple panels or podcasts before as well. But I wanted to know from you as to how do you introduce yourself when you go in a group of strangers? Like, what does Chaitanya Kataria do, and who is he as a person?
Oh, tough question. Uh, I manage the chaos which is created by people around me, and try to keep myself and themselves safe. Uh, I run a company called Gully Gang Entertainment, which is a company I co-founded with an artist I used to manage at that time, and I still manage, Divine. And I've been managing him for a few years, and we started this company together because we had certain ideas, a vision which we aligned on, and wanted to create something bigger than him, his career, or something bigger than what I would do individually. And yeah, and it's been 2 years since we started, and this is what keeps me occupied most of my time.
Wow, that's such a great introduction altogether for the episode itself. One thing really just to set the context for this entire conversation, because I mean, I feel that Gully Gang Entertainment is not a talent management, let's say,
Yeah,
organization or agency.
definitely not.
It's more like, let's say, a content company, or let's say a culture and all of it together. How do you really define what genre, or let's say the segment Gully Gang Entertainment falls under?
Uh, so what I would define it as a all-encompassing media company, right? The idea of the company is to create intellectual property across various formats, and we also act as, if you will, a Y Combinator for artists in terms of the models that we approach and the business models that we have with our artists. The idea is, we help them uh, and sort of invest in them in terms of creating their art. And the idea is that Kali Gang, if it's the umbrella brand, is on top. We create sub brands with the artists who sort of break out over time. So we're taking bets on them, and also we're creating intellectual property along with them.
When you said why combinator for artists, I was like, oh wow, this is like a great business angle or view to it altogether as to how creative businesses or artists should be. Because these days we are really talking about that creators, artists should also have like an entrepreneurial outlook towards their journey and their creation process. um, Something I want to know from you, now that you have set the context for what really Gully Gang Entertainment is. Do you think it's like too much of responsibility because like Divine and other major artists altogether? Do you think that you are leading the hip hop movement in the country, or let's say even globally as well?
Uh, I would say you'd rather be in a segment where you're one of the first movers. Like first mover advantage, I think is generally, it works if you execute well and if you have good ideas and you have a bit of luck, it sort of ends up, really giving you a head start amongst things. And especially in the context of Indian music business and Indian media business, if you will, uh, technology has evolved businesses. Pepper Content is a company which probably wouldn't have been there 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago, or rather 5 years ago, before we had like Geo and the advent of, the socioeconomic reasons why we have so many people going onto the internet and why there's internet enabled businesses that are just like booming through. The way the industry has approached things has been very archaic, in my opinion. Right, having worked through a plethora of companies where I gained good experience, great experience rather. I've managed to observe the way sort of things work in Bollywood, outside Bollywood, in the advertising industry, outside of it, in the experiential marketing industry, in on the more sort of recording industry, which is outside of Bollywood as well, and generally the content industry overall. And barring a few entrants in the last few years, people have been set in their ways for years and years, which I feel is not very creator or artist friendly. Right? There's been business models which are archaic. They were
Yeah,
they should have been evolved from the 1970s with the liberalization of the Indian economy, but it hasn't since then. And I feel that being the leader, that doesn't add pressure on us. It's more about how can we disrupt this space, how can we bring in new ideas, how can we bring in more progressive ideas and create value for ourselves, the artists, and put ourselves in a position that we can also, compete with various different types of companies or organizations in this vast ecosystem. It's quite a broad ecosystem, if you will.
yeah,
Like what we are doing is we started off as a label. Then, of course, we had the services side of things where we manage creators and artists specifically right now. But
yeah,
creator management is something that's also on the horizon for us. More, people on the side, video side, directors,
mm,
filmmakers, and multi hyphenate artists, if you will.
yeah,
Maybe even YouTubers. We're exploring that. Uh, and additionally, we have a very strong production team in terms of content production from designers, uh, animators, videographers, DOPs, directors, which helps us, create so much content which is needed to service the needs of AR artists and the label and whatever
yeah,
releases that we do under them. And the third sort of pillar, if you will, what we're focusing is on the direct to customer slash direct to fan segment, under which comes, of course, merchandising, which is as of now has been physical merchandise, but we're exploring digital goods as well, and keeping a close eye on the crypto and NFT and social token
yeah,
space, and see how we can, over time bring value to our artists, our fans, and of course to ourselves. So
yeah,
that's how it's divided, and it allows us to experiment. It allows us to do things which a more sort of corporate setup would not, and
yeah,
we can make we it allows us to make mistakes. We can kind of move fast on things. We can certain things we can take our time on and see how it goes, how the market responds to it. Of course, what we're
yeah,
doing is still, and we're very cognizant of the fact that it's hip hop and generally music outside of film is still a very niche segment in this country in
yeah,
terms of even like consumption of audio. despite however many numbers that are there, it's still a more niche factor. India has always been a video and a visual first country, and that's you can't change consumer behavior or other people's behavior, which has been set in stone for quite a long time. So
Yeah.
at one point, while you're trying to do new things in a business sense, in a creative sense, you're also trying to see if that matches onto, or rather the monetization and the sort of value creation of it on this side matches up to how users behave or how sort of fans behave. And the context of India is very different, and the approach is very different from what has been done in the West. So
Yeah.
while you look for inspiration across, as you would in any industry and in life, uh, you would want to be very cognizant of how that what has worked there will not work
Yeah.
necessarily here.
Yeah.
So we've been finding out things, and it's been an exciting journey so far.
Yeah. I think the thought, and when you said that, you're also exploring the D2C and also digital, ways of maybe NFTs or crypto and maybe something else also. It's very fascinating for me to think about how Divine will create something of that sort, and might just bid it as an NFT or something like that. I'll hold on to that thought and maybe talk about it towards the end. But
So
something while you were answering about from the first question is how under the bigger umbrella you are adding smaller brands with every artist. um, does when you add these smaller brands and different artists under an umbrella, because all of them come with their own unique taste and style altogether, does it become sometimes a little problematic, or let's say does it become added to your advantage that these diversity and different tastes and different kinds of artists are there under your umbrella, and then for you to package it and sell it to, let's say, clients, or collaborate with organizations and brands as Gully Gang Entertainment, does it become a problem, or it becomes like an advantage?
it's a bit of both, I would say. Uh, Advantage in the sense that we're able to, like, the talents on a roster, they all offer, they have a very different USP together within their own sort of niche and segments, and so it plays to our advantage as well. We end up sort of being a one-stop solution for many sort of clients or brands or promoters or whatever the kind of services that we cater to and products that we offer. uh, it just adds a little more variety to it. And of course, it's very important that approaches for there's no same approach that will work for every artist. We have to tailor it to what they're saying, what they can, what are the lyrics about, what sort of personality do they have, what sort of visual presence do they have, how they sort of interact with fans in while performances or on social media. So the idea is always to create a tailored approach, and you want to find linkages or synergies across. For example, if we want to sort of approach a brand for a collaboration, there has to be synergy between that particular artist and the brand. Otherwise, it's just a trade-off, one-off commercial deal,
Yeah.
which doesn't create long-term value for anyone. You want
Yeah.
to have that alignment, brand alignment, if you will,
Yeah.
across the artist's own brand and the the other client or the company that you're working with.
Got it. Like a small sub question on that. Like, what do
Hmm.
you, when you are, let's say, recruiting new talent and, signing, let's say, a new artist, what really are you looking for in these artists? Do you have a complete, let's say, business sense to it, or you're just looking on the, on the internet as to who is, making waves, or, who has a new unique taste altogether or style altogether? So what are you really looking into when you're signing a new artist?
Uh, I would say the top three things, if I have to quantify it, would be, of course, incredible music. There has to be like, and it has to be something different from. I don't want any two artists which make similar type of music, even in their own niches, because then I feel that we'll not be either doing justice to either of them, right? I don't want to be put in a position where I have to choose between them in that sense, and when they're offering very similar qualities and similar value. Uh, so music, and I would say like really star or superstar potential, and the definition of that can vary. Some
Hmm.
artists, we see that they can be absolute leaders across the spectrum, across genres. Some
Hmm.
in a few years time, or however much long that may take. Some will be, they will carve out a very specific niche and they will really own that niche.
Yeah.
And some might, there's there's different levels of success, but we take bets on people who we think will be successful through their music, through their art. It's something compelling.
Yeah.
It's something that relates to people. That's something that's very important for me. Your music and art that you're making, how is it relatable? That is what gives it that sort of long-lasting quality, rather than it being something which just exists for a momentary piece of time, or a small moment. And the second thing would be someone who's very hungry on a more personal level. Uh, there is a reason why all, well, not all, rather it should be the way in the creator and media business. Creators are incentivized more than whatever managements, labels, production houses, etc., that they should be working with, or they work with. That's, in my opinion, that's the fairest way of sort of this business to work, because ultimately it's the businesses are built around the creator, around the music, around the artist,
Yeah.
around the director, around the actor, in that sense. So they should be hungrier than the other. They should be hungrier than
Hmm.
whatever management label, etc., that they're working with.
Hmm.
Unless, and that hunger has to sustain in various different ways, through various different forms of
Yeah.
stages of their career as well. So that's something, of course, it's not something you can absolutely judge at the beginning of a few meetings or conversations or talking to someone, but it's something I actively look for in artists and sort of creators that we would wish to work with on a more regular basis, because it's also we don't win until they win, right? So it's
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
we want to be sure that if you're partnering with someone, they're as driven as we are towards sort of achieving these mutual sort of goals that we have. uh yeah, I said top three. I would say these are the top two. Like,
Got
these
it.
would come to be, the, if either of them is a little off, then
Hmm.
I'll have doubts. So
Yeah, yeah. And like the talent that you have signed in the past, like all of them have qualified these top two reasons for you. Like, how is it?
yes, I would say so. Here's the thing, right? Some artists may take a year or so to break out. Some may take a few
Hmm.
years to break out. Some may even
Yeah.
break out 6 months after you get them on board. So
Yeah.
it those stages vary, but
Yeah.
we believe in all of the talents we have on our roster, and you always have to have that belief that everything, the next release that you're going to put out, that might sort of really just
Yeah.
exponentially change things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Got it.
that belief system is very important to have, because then the team that works with them
Yeah.
as well is feels that sort of shared sense of goals and you know targets, if you will.
Got it. Got it. Moving from, let's say from Gully Gang Entertainment and now more towards the whole, how the creator economy is, really shaping up and nationally or let's say globally as well. And how you were referring to, let's say because of the geo boom, now a lot of things have changed and it's so easy to create content right now. But that has also made the space a little overcrowded and cluttered at the same time. So, how does, let's say, a creator or an artist really stand out today in the whole ecosystem is something that I would want to know from you because uh, I think you have such diverse set of people that you work with and artists that you work with. So, how do you really think other creators who are listening to this and watching this, how can they really stand out on the internet today?
um, See, here's the thing, right? You have to build for an audience of one to begin with. That it's, I think it's just said many times. You have to build. You can't make music or make content or something that is going to appease everyone. There will always be detractors. So the first thing is to make compelling music, content, art, whatever it is, whatever you specialize in. Uh, and at some level, I feel it has to be relatable as well to people. You know, Like, to give an example of music, and like most of the music we do is very lyrics driven by lyrics rather than driven by storytelling. You have to, if it not doesn't relate to someone, it doesn't evoke any emotion out of them, then it's not something that, it's just a piece of music. It's not something that's necessarily going to have them come back, listen to it again and again. And it's those repeat listens or is the repeat views
Yeah.
which really sort of drive value for you, and sort of give value to the someone, to someone who's experiencing that as well, right? So all, in my opinion, all art, content, music, it has to be compelling and it has to relate to people. There has never been a better time to be an artist or be a creator, and be able to explore whatever is inside of you, and you want to express the tools. There's so many tools. It's easier than ever. It's more to do with quality, quality filtration, and that's entirely on each creator. In my opinion, is that at some point or the other, it may take a few years. And if you're persistent enough, and if you're really doing compelling sort of stuff and really pushing yourself, you will eventually, in some form or the other, sort of find that level of success or whatever that you're looking for. That's my opinion. It might not necessarily be be echoed by a lot of others, but I think it's great. It's, you want to be successful in a space which has a lot of competitors, like
Hmm.
in this scenario.
Yeah, yeah. And I think no, it really makes sense as well because you have to have that, let's say, quality or that uniqueness to yourself, right? The way to, stand out or, be really visible is to have your own, let's say, style or your uniqueness altogether. And
Absolutely. So sorry to break you there. I think it's also, you have to build you always have to start from a niche, right? No one who's popular right now, or no one who's sort of achieved, you know national or global level of success, they always, when they started out with a niche audience or a niche sort of community or niche following, which sort of stuck with them for years. And those were, I would say, fans slash first level marketers for them, through word of mouth, through their shares, is what that XYZ artist or person has eventually grown. So it's, you want to sort of have, start with the cult following, try to build a cult following, own a niche, own a category, or own a subcategory.
yeah,
There's subs within subcategories right now. So you want to really own that
yeah,
space, and then sort of, try and scale from it.
yeah, yeah. And this, when you were answering about categories, subcategories, and then again, some more subcategories into it, your is more like a technical or let's say analytical some
Mm.
question that I want to know from you because uh, something as simple as when we are trying to write a blog about a particular topic, we are going ahead and researching about some keywords for it, what's the trends for it, and all of those sort of things. Um, and if I look at the music as a piece of content, uh, what are some of the analytics or let's say trends that you are observing or just studying before going ahead and deciding that okay, let's make a song with the title Mirchi, or let's make a song with MC Altaf where the title of it is Soch, or let's have the style of the video in this particular format, or let's have the beat of this in so and so manner. Is there some analytics going behind over here? Because at the end of the day we are putting this out on the internet and all these platforms, and they have their certain rules altogether, or this is like, no, this is our style, and this is what we really want to put out. How is the
There's
process and
no,
frame like?
we don't, the music industry is very data driven. We can see a lot of data, but I feel music ultimately is a connect on emotions, right? Whatever that emotion might be. It doesn't have to be, even something that's funny is a bit of a, evokes an emotion inside of you, right? So these things develop very organically. What may happen is that you end up putting certain artists in touch with each other, or suggesting, certain collaborations to happen, putting a rapper and a producer, a composer in touch as well. And they create something which comes, and you feel you want to sort of, this is something amazing, we should release it. Like what I tell our artists is, make music that we as your label cannot ignore, right? Make things wherein it's so good that we have to sort of find a way to put this out ASAP and put it out in the best way possible. Uh, in terms of naming tracks, that's fairly straightforward, man. That usually comes from the usually it's the hook of the track, or there's a theme. If there's a theme, and if there's not
Yeah.
tracks which don't really have a hook, or if there's a particular lyric that is really resonates with the artist, and that's the
Hmm.
naming of tracks more or less always is reserved with the artists. They usually it's something connects with them. They feel strong about it, and yeah, we're on board with them on that. When it comes to videos, as I said, we have a strong team which is very experienced in terms of creating music videos and short form content. And usually we jam with ideas with the artists in hip hop. Most artists that I have come across, or most successful artists that I've come across, they tend to also co-direct their videos. They always have sort of ideas and sort of a theme, because ultimately you're bringing their storytelling, their what they've written to life in a visual form, right? So they tend to always have some ideas, and it's the team which sort of works with them and builds upon it. Very rarely do we do videos wherein the artist hasn't had a lot of input within their sort of visuals as well.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Got
it's
it.
a two-way street. I would not say it's that data driven or analytical in that sense.
Got it. But I think yesterday or
uh,
today is yeah, you were saying something?
Sorry, I'm saying a
Hmm.
good name will only put you across so much. Most of the work is within the actual track. If someone is listening the track, you might catch someone's attention with a catchy name, but if they're playing it and they're not completing the track and not listening to it again and again, then there's something, you can only get so far. You might have a
Yeah.
very high intake at the beginning, but your drop off is going to be pretty huge. You want something
Yeah.
which builds and builds and builds.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. So I understand that, this might not be very, of this manner, but I think today or yesterday is when Gully Gang started their Discord
Yeah.
server. And something that I've also noticed is that, you release your audio songs, or let's say the video, at midnight. I mean, is this like a frequent trend, or, is just for the last few songs, has that been that this way?
Oh no, that's basically because you tend to get a choice of either release at a specific time in the day, or if you choose just the date of release, then for example on the international global platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, it tends to be available from that date, so that tends to be midnight. What it also helps sometimes is that it helps fans, like the super fans if you will, really experience the the audio, the track without a visual, because sometimes visuals also change how you interpret things, right? And it also sort of
Yeah,
forms
yeah,
a very small testing. You can really gauge the success of a track, I would say most tracks, through how it does on the audio form. Of course, there are a lot of tracks which need a video to really complement it and bring it out. And of course, we're a video first uh, sort of audience here in India, definitely.
yeah.
So videos play a key role in sort of push, giving that additional push that it's required. So
Got it, got it.
so
And
not a lot of thinking goes there, but we tend to also see that people listen to music a lot more in the evenings. It's just data that sort of comes in. So yeah, I would say that.
tell us about how do you plan, how do you have to promote these songs? Like not just, let's say, by Divine or some, like in general, how do you plan about promoting or distributing these songs by various artists? Like what's the framework or like the process for it?
So, see, distribution, the way we do things is either for some releases, we go via an independent distributor, and for some releases, we sort of partner with another label. We partnered with Mass Appeal India and Universal on a lot of releases that we've done over the past 2 years. And it's a call that's taken much, much more in advance. And, basis, the project, the album, EP, or whatever the single. So there's not a lot of I would say, it's we don't make think about releasing a track and then think, okay, this is where this should come out. Take that decision. Those decisions are already put in place. The systems are already put in place much more in advance. Additionally, once you have a track that's in place, once you have at least an idea of how the visuals are going to be or how the visuals look like, uh, we tend to sort of jam on ideas with the team, with the artists, and seeing things and connecting threads that we should, focus on. And obviously, recently over the past, I would say 6 months, we've had a lot of success through short form video, and I would say particularly Instagram Reels. Whatever sort of ended up working there, and has ended up also translating to different mediums, be it the music video or be it the audio streaming platforms. And uh, and of course, sometimes it's a case of, the video itself or the music itself is just so incredible that it markets itself. I feel that
Yeah.
more people should release music which markets itself, that the quality, we're doing very good in this sort of space, especially in the hip hop space and the mm, space outside of Bollywood in terms of music. But I feel the quality of music, we can have a lot more compelling music, and we can have a
Yeah.
lot more artists coming forward from different regions and different languages. I think that's we'll have this decade will have some of the biggest superstars, and not necessarily only going to be Hindi or Punjabi artists. They're going to be,
Hmm.
Telugu, Tamil, Bengali, uh, Gujarati, Marathi. Uh, like, of course, I can't say all the Indian languages on one go, but I think that's the next sort of, step that's going to
Yeah.
be accomplished in this
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
arena.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we'll move to what we call like a small
Hmm.
lightning round sort of set of questions. Um, because for creating one track, there are multiple people, right? As you were referring to, mixed master artist, like a videographer, like DOP, director, the
Oh
actual.
man, it's a headache. Like, it's an absolute headache. That's in fact one of the reasons why, which inspired us to start a company and put this sort of knowledge infrastructure in place. I
Hmm.
was uh, managing Divine at previous company, which was OML. I was
Hmm.
an artist manager there, and he was signed there. And every time that we had to release a track, I had to deal with like 7, 8 different guys,
Hmm.
uh, from like the recording engineer to the mix engineer to the mastering engineer to the producer or composer. If there is a collaborating artist, into that artist as well. Then of course you move to the video side of things. You have the director, DOP, or the production house that you're working with, and then also you want to market it. So then possibly, someone who knows digital marketing, someone who sort of, knows his way around different platforms, and someone who can help you write copy with things, someone who can uh, help you uh, put out, press releases, like
Yeah.
more PR side of things. So I was like, and I was seeing how artists were releasing what you would call a minimum viable product, and in the minimum
Hmm.
viable sort of way, wherein, okay,
Hmm.
this is just it, listen to it. But
Yeah.
a lot of incredible music I felt caught with just the right amount of push, or even just the right little bit of, strategic things in place. I realized that most hip hop artists that I would come across are just so encumbered in sort of dealing with all of this that, something or the other will always get missed out.
Yeah.
And I was like, why don't we wanted to come together and sort of solve for, a wanted to have our own sound and sort of, have this label.
Yeah.
And because Gully Gang already was, a brand and name that was synonymous with hip hop
Hmm.
and with Divine. Like, why don't we just turn it into a company and build this ecosystem which has a knowledge infrastructure of, from tracking deals to monetizing to sales to the creative, just giving all tools that and support that an artist or rapper or producer would need to, make music and just, put it out. Just the focus for them should be on making compelling music, and we figure out everything else around it. So that was the thought process behind it. How do we solve for this?
So how does this really happen for you? Like if the artist is, just focusing on, let's say, I don't know the most famous like recent song. I think Mirchi is like in my head always. So
Hmm.
like so Divine writes this song, creates the music for it. Like what is going on in the back end? How is that massive collaboration with so many different people going on? Like how does this
Well,
look like?
something like this takes months to most collaborations and most amazing collaborations. While even if demo ideas and sketches might come in one or two studio sessions, they how it develops over a period of time is very different, right? It
Hmm.
like and especially
Yeah.
for a track like Mirchi, I think it started the demo was made with the hook. Like Vivian is divine. He was in the
Hmm.
studio with Pinaki, who's Phenom, who produced that track. Also in
Hmm.
fact ended up rapping a small bridge. Uh, they were jamming in the studio, and he came up with this beat, and he laid down a hook, which was the hook of the track, the
Hmm.
chorus, if you will. And over time, he put in his verse. Then he thought someone like Altaf would suit it well, suit the beat well. His flow would,
Hmm.
suit the track well. And Altaf put in his verse. Then we were like, okay, what else to do? Uh, he said he wanted to work with this reggae artist, uh,
Hmm.
Jamaican reggae artist, Tylo G. He thought he'd be very good. He was at that time sort of listening to a lot of music from him. He thought, he would suit the beat very well, suit the track very well. And as it would happen at that time, he'd signed to a publisher with whom we have a joint venture, his company called Reservoir Media. And turns out they also sort of were the publisher for Stylogy. So I reached out to our A&R there and asked him, can you put us in touch? We sent him the beat. It He absolutely loved it, and he sent back his verse. I remember, I think only in like 2 days or something. Which in music industry terms, that's like lightning quick. Some verses albums have been delayed because of verses and sort of features not coming in time, and this is like been across everywhere, the entire globe, I think. uh, and then I think Vivian and Pinaki were finishing the track, and they put together uh, there was a space for a bridge. We thought, do we need to add another vocal to it? And they were jamming, and he wrote this four bar verse for him, and Pinaki performed it. And yeah, then the audio was ready. Now we're like, okay, wow, we have an amazing track, which is definitely going to be a hit. We didn't expect how big a hit it's going to be.
Hmm.
It turned out, I think it really surpassed everyone's expectations. But then it was the case of, how do we complement it with the best visuals possible?
Yeah.
Uh, Definitely one of the most stressful videos we produced, but it was finished after all trials and tribulations, going over budget by like almost double. And I think the video final exports came to us 12 or 16 hours before actual release of the video. We submitted the track. Usually you submit the audio and the artwork much more in advance. And the streaming platforms have their own sort of, regulations in terms of, how early you can submit something. And so the track was coming. We were in danger of, okay, wow, track is going to come. Is the video going to be ready in time? Right. And then everything else around it. But yeah, if we managed to get that through and release the video, and within a day we knew, okay, wow, this is like something incredible. It surpassed all stats on YouTube. It took a little while to actually grow on audio. Then we also sort of ran some fan contests, and the
Yeah.
response was incredible.
Yeah.
I My Instagram Explore algorithm,
Hmm.
I'd seen so many reels for Mirchi that I would, every time I would go on my Explore page, there would be a reel and that would be on Mirchi. So, and that translated across many different things. I would hear the track
Yeah.
being played, cars passing by my apartment. I would hear the track being played quite loud, and then you see that it's being played on radio, weddings, clubs,
Yeah.
Diwali parties, everything. And yeah, it definitely, I would say it was one of the biggest tracks of last year across all genres.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot goes on behind.
I mean, as a listener or let's say as a fan, I would have never thought that like this is how it was like 12 hours or whatever 16 hours before like releasing the video of it
Oh
is
man,
whatever.
releasing music is at times very stressful as well, because something or the other goes wrong, it's not coming, and you promise fans something is coming, and like if you tell them that something is delayed, there will be a barrage of spam for the artist, for you,
Yeah,
for the entire team, and everyone who's
yeah,
working on it.
yeah,
So you don't want to disappoint fans, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
they're expecting something, and it's also like it was a very difficult day for a lot of people. So we're like, okay, let's make have something to smile about,
Yeah.
and let's sort of try and deliver things, on time. Yeah. So
Wow. I think this
content
is
production is very stressful. So I'll tell you that.
but loved, the knowing the behind the scenes of how this entire track was made. I'm going to come to the last part of this whole conversation, which we call like a small lightning round, and you just answer what are the first thing
Hmm.
that come to your head.
Sure.
Um, the first question is three rappers that people don't know about in the country, or let's say globally, but they should know about. Who are these three rappers?
Uh, on a global sense, I would say Benny the Butcher. I've been listening to him a lot. He's had some amazing releases over the last year or so. He's not the most sort of well-known or commercially successful rappers out there, but I think he's one to watch out for. He's on my playlist a lot right now. Coming to India, I came across this artist called 100 RBH, who has been part of Swadesi, but I never had
Hmm.
heard his solo stuff until he released his track. I think December, if I'm not mistaken, December or January, which
Hmm.
uh, which is basically part Hindi, part Marathi, and it's incredible.
Hmm. Yeah.
I just loved his versatility in sort of all these different things that he was trying. I think another artist, I would say, not necessarily, I wouldn't categorize him as a hip hop artist because he's
Hmm.
a artist who works across genres. This artist called Sumayoki, spelled T-S-U-M Sum T-S-U-M-Y-O-K-I. It's
Hmm.
pronounced Sumayoki. Obviously, heavily inspired by anime and Japanese culture. Uh, who's making his music is inspired by hip hop, uh, alt rock, and I would say even a bit of punk, and
Hmm.
it just comes together to make this weird blend of pop. Like not like I wouldn't say like Britney Spears pop, but like pop more, which is very eclectic, and
Hmm.
I think he'll do well. So he's so yeah, those would be the three right now because I've been listening to some other stuff.
I'm definitely going to check out these three
Hmm.
artists after the conversation. The next question is, what is one problem that we need to solve right now in the rap scene?
I think the quality, specifically in India, I think the quality of we need more quality music producers and composers coming in. Uh, there's a lot of great rappers, but I would say there's very few so good songwriters. I hear so many
Hmm.
rappers who would be amazing on features and have these great verses and
Hmm.
lyrical ability, but it's not translating well in a full song format at times. They're
Hmm.
not finding that success. So, and I think it does take a good producer, composer, someone who's working with you. Uh,
Yeah.
Basically, a lot of rappers in the country need their Dr. Dre's.
Yeah.
So we need more Hit Boys, Dr. Dre's, and all Scott Storches of the world coming in. We already have quite a few great producers. I would say definitely would put Stunna, Says, and Karan Kanchan in my top
Hmm.
three, even if I'm partially biased,
Yeah.
uh, because two of them are on our roster. Uh, I'd say that we need more of them for the quality of music to really elevate on a consistent basis and across the spectrum.
Got it. Got it. The next question is, which non-rap artists would you want to see attempt rap music?
I'd want to see some producers try rap. It happens a lot. Like for example, Nav was a producer before he started his rap career, and like it obviously worked very well for him. It's happened for a few other people as well. I would see more. I can't think of anyone completely outside of hip hop getting
Hmm.
into it. Also, if I say some random name, I'll get a lot of flack as well. Uh, But I would definitely think that, we'll see some producers also down the line coming and sort of attempting, making music in that sense, or
Got
rather
it.
performing
Got it.
vocals and writing and all that.
Got it. The next question is one form of content that you see dominating the internet in next few years.
I'm not sure if it's dominating, but I am quite a big fan of social audio. Uh,
Hmm.
I think what that has done is it's really empowered the introverts, or rather anyone
Hmm.
who's not an
Yeah.
extrovert, into being able to sort of express themselves and sort of, just the format of it. Like I'm a huge fan of how Clubhouse is structured and how it is. I
Hmm.
think social audio and podcast is something I listen to a lot.
Yeah.
I do think
Yeah.
combining that with a social element is going to have a return in ways we can't imagine.
Yeah.
It may not be the most dominant force, but I think it will be a considerable force.
Got it. Got it. Just the last question of the this segment. What has been like a weird request any of your clients, or let's say event organizers or any collaborators have asked you for?
Oh man, like all random requests to come in a lot of the time. I would say a lot of event promoters, they have bizarre requests happening uh, all the time, and
Like what do they tell you? Like no, आज और एक swipe up story डाल दो or something of those sort, or
hey man,
like
that too happens uh, way too much. Way beyond, like, people get a lot of anxiety. You know,
hmm,
ticket sales, and generally, I think in this country and in general, people buy a very like last moment buyers. You should have
hmm,
a long enough window that it
yeah,
steadily keeps moving, but most movement ends up happening, in the very last few days.
yeah,
Uh, but that obviously gives any organizer, and I've been on that side as well. It gives you
yeah, yeah,
anxiety. So uh, you tend to sort of, just go absolutely out of control in terms of asking for things. So it happens, but yeah, it's also where it's our sort of role to keep ourselves
hmm.
sane and not pass on the stress and anxiety from the promoter or the client or someone onto the
So
artist.
that is, yeah.
So yeah, usually, like I would say, turnaround times and for delivery of things, and like I don't know how the most random, we get a lot of ad queries and brand related queries wherein,
Hmm,
there's a campaign coming up, we got to make a track, and then what are the
hmm,
timelines? Oh, we got to put it out next week with a video. And
hmm,
the amount of times it happens, I think it's slowed down a little post COVID because
hmm,
people are planning a little more. But the ridiculous timelines which come into play, we're like, okay, no, there's no point because we can't deliver in that timeline. There is no way in hell we will reach a commercial agreement. Forget doing Indian contracts, which I'm sure you
yeah.
realize that so much random stuff we have in Indian contracts in the formatting of it, that those things take so much time, frustratingly as well, especially if you're really negotiating your contracts properly. Some
Yeah,
people just blindly sign contracts which they shouldn't do.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, like ridiculous request timelines are, and they're the most infuriating. And one thing which absolutely grates me, and I am shocked I still get those queries, is uh, people reach. So all rappers are, any rapper of you know considerable success or skill is also a great writer. They write their own music,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
We get queries from, and I'm sure a lot of other artists in this space also do have that. It queries from agencies and brands, or other agencies more, wherein here's a track, our internal copywriter has written the track. We don't have a
Hmm.
piece of music. Can you, compose and sort of rap over it? As like,
Hmm.
why do you want to pay this exorbitant amount
Hmm.
for something which your internal team member,
Yeah.
no doubts about, they might possibly turn out to be a rapper as well, that's down the line, or a great songwriter is written, um, and you want to just get someone for their voice. So things like
Hmm.
that really infuriate me all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like we shoot those things down, like, rather let go of the money than, do something which you're not creatively comfortable with. So I think, yeah, a lot of sensitization needs to happen when it comes to music, and when it comes to brands and agencies working on things. Not
Yeah.
even just hip hop, like generally in terms
Yeah.
of music,
Yeah.
right? Because the non-film or other industry outside film has really grown. However, systems on the other side haven't really adapted to how things work now. It's
Yeah.
not rappers aren't playback singers.
Yeah.
With all due
Yeah.
respect to playback singers, and they have their own expertise as well. So
Yeah.
people need to be sensitized, I feel, in that regards.
Got it.
That
Got it.
wasn't a rapid fire answer. That was a little detailed.
No, but I think Chaitanya, for someone who has Divine like his top artist on Spotify, I think I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and knowing from you as to what you think, how this entire space is, and how the functioning at Gully Gang Entertainment really happens. It's very very fascinating for me also to understand that and know that, and I'm very sure everyone who's going to watch this or listen to this, they're going to thoroughly enjoy and maybe reach out to you with far more questions on Twitter or Instagram across platform to really pick your brains on multiple other things, or maybe know stories about behind the scenes of other some songs. So thank you so much for doing this conversation with us.
Thanks, Pawan. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. Loved the questions, and yeah, open to anyone reaching out. Hopefully, someone might enjoy the conversation as I did. So,
I think we're setting our expectation bars really low by just seeing someone. I think there are going to be hundreds of people who are going to reach out to you with more questions and maybe just appreciation to each altogether. But thank you so much, Chaitanya, once again.
thanks, man.
And when we upload this, everyone who's watching or listening to this, there's a in the description of this episode, you can reach out to Chaitanya directly and just shoot any questions that you have for him or the entire Gully Gang team. Thank you so much for listening to the 10th episode of Pepper Spotlight podcast. If you like this conversation with Chaitanya Kataria, please share it on Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you're active. If you want to know more details and some stories about the hip hop or rap scene of India, please feel free to just tag us and ask your questions, and we'll make sure that we can address these questions on social media. For any other requests or recommendations for whom we should invite on the show, please just feel free to DM us on @pepper_content. Pepper Spotlight is a weekly podcast show which releases on every Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Hubhopper, Ghana, Anchor, whichever podcast app that you use. And if you still don't find it, just like DM us and we'll personally send you the link to this episodes. My name is Pawan Rochwani, and thank you so much for listening to this episode. We will see you again on next Wednesday.